So one of my life goals that I've been working on for the better part of 2 years now is to have a good relationship with food. Now, earlier this week, something happened on the news that made me realize just how important this is. There were several people, I think it wasn't just one, who were mistakenly reported to be Brian Laundrie, and obviously he's potential. We got to treat any sighting of him like he's potentially armed and dangerous. So SWAT teams would be called in. Fortunately, nobody was seriously hurt in any of those situations. But it highlighted a problem that I used to have, which caused me a lot of strife. I've never gotten into a dangerous situation where I had to interact with SWAT teams, but I have gotten into situations where my professional and my social life are on the line. Right? Maybe not my life, but I had a problem with. I'm a professor at a startup university here in the Seattle area, and I had a situation that cost me a bad evaluation. What had happened was, second day of class, one of my students wants to come to my office hours to set up some software so he can work on his homework. Now, I teach from, I believe, 7 to 9. He wanted to come to my office hours at the beginning of the office hours at 6. I was also working at a tutoring center. I get off work at the tutoring center 5:30, and I was going to go to Whole Foods, get some lunch, and meet my student at the university. Now, at the university, we have a break room, which really is staff only, and I was going to meet him at my office. So I go to the break room to eat, and sometimes students don't have the best sense of boundaries, and he goes into the break room to start asking me his questions. He gets there 5:40, 5:45 maybe. And I thought he had a very simple question. You know, it's a 2-minute issue. I didn't really think much of it. I learned from that experience, if you want to set boundaries, you set them. Hey, this is the break room. This is for staff only. I made the naive mistake of starting to answer him. The answer got very long-winded. And in retrospect, I should have said, I only have this time for meals because I have to teach later. You know, he's in that class that I'm teaching at 7 to 9, so he should know. But in retrospect, I could have made it more clear. I think the problem was I didn't want to be aware that I was eating so much. I was pretty disgusted about my eating habits. Long story short, he threatened to drop the class. He told me straight up that this was only the second day of class. He already can't do his homework. How do we drop the class? And long story short, at the end of that semester, I got one bad evaluation. I don't know if it was him, but obviously I made a bad impression, and I apologized to him for that. That wasn't the only tricky situation I got into involving food craving kind of issues. I was in a conference in Macau, and you gotta understand, due to health conditions, I have dietary restrictions. Now, we were at a banquet where there's not much I could eat there. Now, I wasn't really that hungry, but I started craving something, and I went out to look for my favorite foods. Now, I don't read Chinese characters very well. I speak Chinese. I don't read the characters very well, so ingredients can be tricky for me. And before I knew it, I got lost in the streets of Macau. By the time I went back to the conference hall, everybody had left for the day. So I missed out on a chance to network with the right people. I was in Shanghai when I got very upset because I had difficulty finding suitable food, you know, asking about ingredients and all that. I had gone to a wet market, actually, on my way home from Macau when I flew through Shanghai. I'd gone to a wet market. I was going to try this dog liver meat. And I asked the vendor if he uses MSG. I got to avoid that because it gives me a skin rash. And he asked me where I was from. I said I'm from Taiwan, and he said, "Yeah, that's not something we Chinese would. Only the Taiwanese would use it. Don't you dare slander the Chinese name. We would never use anything like that." And I got very frustrated because I was prepped up for eating whatever I saw there. I wanted to try something new. and I was in Poland a few years ago, and I kept missing foods back home. Made my trip a little bit more anxious than it needed to be. Now, why do I mention all this? Well, a couple days ago, when the so-called Brian Laundrie lookalikes were being arrested, had I been in their shoes and I was craving food, it certainly wouldn't have it would have affected my behavior, right? And sometimes, actually, one time I had gotten into a car accident 5 years ago. I don't know if food cravings played into this, but the officer thought I was drunk, and he arrested me, took me to the station, and not a very pleasant experience, right? I eventually cleared my name and everything. I even got a refund for the car being impounded and all that. But certainly having food craving issues certainly didn't help with that situation. Who knows how that would have played out if I had a more level head with my eating situation at the time. Now, it scares me that my desire for eating sometimes literally hijacks the better control of myself. So last year I was dating a Filipino girl, and I told her I needed to practice this, and I told her when we go out to eat, at random time intervals, make me stop eating for a minute, right? She'll interrupt and say, stop eating, and we'll talk about something for a minute, just to make sure I could practice doing that. I think it drove her nuts. I think that's why we're not seeing each other anymore, but that's all right. I got to practice, and the fact that she's unconcerned about something that I really need to work on, maybe that's not exactly the right fit. But I really do need to work on this, right? I sometimes, one of my favorite things to do is every hour on the 20 minutes, I'll stop eating for 2 minutes, right? If I don't have somebody to pick random times, if I happen to see the clock at a certain time, I'll stop eating. Certain queue events, I'll stop eating, right? I have a list of queue events that I'll stop eating for a minute or 2 minutes, just to know I can do that. But just in case, next time it might not be a peaceful event like that, right? And I need to be able to handle it. All right, so yesterday's or the events of a couple days ago with the Brian Laundrie lookalikes was a good reminder of what can go wrong if we don't take better control of our lives.